Everybody, first meeting of 2023. So you guys are more than welcome here. Let's begin with a sunny day in San Diego, and we're not complaining because we're getting a lot of rain lately. But we need it. We need it. But Lucy, if you don't mind reading a few words for us.
Don't ignore the value and power of prayer. Just as the body needs adequate nutrition to survive, so does the spirit as matter's living-giving agent. Prayer is high-octane fuel for the harmony of the spirit. Make a prayer a habit. Incorporate it into your daily routine, and you will see its benefits. Don't deny yourself the bread of life, which is sincere, heartfelt prayer.
Thank you very much. And we're having this message coming through in so many different ways. We're going to talk more about that today. Okay, let me say the opening prayer then. Thank you, Glosia. Thank you. Mother, Father God, Divine Creator, thank you very much for all that has been given to us as we begin a new year with hope and joy in our hearts. May we always take these opportunities of a new start, of a new beginning, to always open our hearts and minds to the life that never ends, to the understanding that your divine presence is always with us, regardless of what we do, what we did, or even what we're going to do in the future. Thank you very much for the awareness of spirituality. Thank you very much for the will that's starting to come to our hearts, to see your presence, see your light everywhere we go. And with that in mind, we humbly ask permission to our mentors and guides, inspiration from our Master Jesus, the model, the example, to start our meeting this Sunday. Thank you very much, and so be it. Thank you. We have had in our work so many times, there's so many things going on in our group. And the message of the prayer, right, has been very consistent. And I can talk about myself because I do believe it's the whole spiritual thing. I do believe we don't die. I don't believe life continues. And I believe we're spirits. I don't have any doubts about that. I give you that I might be wrong. Some people don't believe it. And this is the mainstream right now, that we are only the brain. And a lot of people believe that is the understanding of science at this point in time. But I honestly think that's not the case. I think we are truly, there's something on us that doesn't die, right? You want to call what you want, right? But it's amazing that all this knowledge I have, right, still doesn't translate to the deepest understanding of prayer. Because what is a prayer? Prayer has nothing to do with religion, right? Prayer is just that moment we just turn into the inner life, right? We go inside of ourselves, and we have this interaction with the divine the best way we can. That's why when we do even the study of prayers in our study groups here, we practice so much using our own words, interacting with the divine, with whatever emotions and feelings and thoughts I have. And that's a precious moment of recharging. It's a precious moment of just making this uncomfortable sometimes situation where I'm visiting my own mind, I'm visiting my own universe. And that might be not so easy, right? Because there's so much coming to us right now. There's so much information, so many things happening. There's so much inputs, right? Especially with our technology, everything. So there's so much happening, right? But still, the essence of our minds, what we are inside, is still the same. So prayers for us are really that not the religious experience. It's the moment where I take time to visit myself, my inner world, right? And with a purpose. So I have a purpose to bring something that I consider to be positive, right? So this is tremendously important. And I see, and I have so much respect for so much, for other people that don't have this understanding about spirituality, because I do, and I struggle to have a prayer or a moment where I do my own inner voyage every day. It's so easy to get caught into the confusions and the challenges and the other things that are going on with us, right? I really think the 5 minutes rule every day at least makes a huge impact. But I myself have not been able to do that consistently. So I think when I do, it's going to be a major challenge, a major accomplishment, I think, in terms of keeping my own mind in a good place. And we're going to be talking about this today. The inspiration we have today is one of the, we always do this, right? We have a material or usually a chapter of the gospel or something similar, and we use as inspiration, right? And today is chapter 21, which is a warning that Kardec captured in the Gospel according to Spiritism about some of the challenges we have when we follow others. So think about this. We humans, we all have a path to spirituality. But we all are different. There's 8 billion of us right now incarnated. I don't know if you guys sometimes do just talk for a moment. There's 8 billion people right now on the flesh, right? We're all unique. Not two people are exactly the same. Even if we're twins, not two people are exactly the same. But we're all the same because our experiences are so similar. We're going through the body right now. We are in the flesh. We have similar experiences with our bodies. They work pretty much the same. They're different, but the way they work is pretty much the same. We deal with the same hormones, with the same chemicals, with the same nutrients, but yet every single one of us is unique, right? So respecting that uniqueness will give us the idea that whatever experience we're going through, right, is what we need right now. But we're trying to make the best out of it. Humans are very social. We're tremendously social species, right? We live together. We have to be together, by the way. It's very difficult to be. You can try, right, to be alone and to be isolated. But you see, it's a very difficult proposition. We're social, and we learn from each other. We have this amazing skill that when somebody does something, we're not the only species that does that. Other species also learn. But when you see somebody do something and they accomplish, they do something right, like they fix something, they grab food, we learn by just seeing what they're doing. This has been a major leverage to our evolution, right? And it's important for us to find people that do things we see appropriate, and we copy that. We'll say, oh, this is a good way to do it, right? This is amazing. It's human in nature. But as we evolve and as we become more intellectual, as we become now this incredible species, this brain that we have that's so capable, right? The levels of abstraction have grown tremendously, right? And became very, although when we were like a more simple species, gathering food the best way, or things that were more, to a certain degree, direct actions that we could do, now become a little bit more complicated, because now we want to grow, we want to become better beings spiritually, and we still follow others, right? Wouldn't it be amazing if all the people around you were, all those that did things better than you, had an intent of growth, or had an intent of always progressing and taking the community with us? Could you imagine if we could copy everybody? If we could just go around and just observe other people, the way they deal with problems, and we would just copy them, and if they succeed. It became a little bit more complicated now because what happened to us? We're now more complex beings. And sometimes there's a famous, it's not famous at all, but every time I mention this movie is with Rick Gervais, that British comedian. It's the name of the movie is The Invention of Lie. Every time I mention, anybody saw this movie? Probably nobody did. Oh, you did you? It's a very funny movie because the proposition in the movie is nobody lies in the movie. Nobody. Everybody tells the truth 100% of the time. It's brutal. The movie's brutal, right? Because people are honest directly to their face. Like, if you're ugly, you're ugly. If you're not, everything is said purely dry, and that's the way it is, right? And in society, what happens? He is the first person that realizes, I can say things the way I want. And I can tell people my vision of the world, not theirs, which we call a lie. And then all hell breaks loose, of course, and everything. And watch the movie is kind of funny. But in a way, we become entangled in our own complexity. Like, for instance, I think I said this a few times with here, forgive me if you guys have heard this before, but I remember a few years ago having a conversation with my younger one, and all of a sudden he looked at me and said, hey, Dad, wouldn't it be nice if I had all the money in the world? If I had all the money in the world, all the money in the world was mine, right? And I looked at him and said, okay, I'll be nice to you, but what about other people? How would they buy stuff? And he thought for a moment and said, okay, I'll give you and Mom a little bit of money, but not to my brother. You see, we can think about that as a very, it's a child. It's a child, right? But this is how we do things on earth sometimes, because we think about earth. Yeah, it's a super beautiful idea of me having all the money in the world. But then I have to share because you have too. And there's 8 billion of us. I didn't even talk about this. But see, this is how we sometimes, something that we use a very heavy word, we call sometimes evil or bad things. But sometimes it's just that. It's just this ignorance or this selfishness that doesn't prevent us from seeing what is just around the corner. And some of the most painful experiences we cause to each other, some of the pain we have gone through our lives, and the harm we do to each other, in many circumstances, is caused by us silly as perspective, as I just told you about I think at the time it was probably 9 or 10, I don't know. For instance, do we own people? Do we own them? Can I say to my wife, we say that, right, by the way, my wife, or my son, or my husband, are they ours? Do we have a certification of possession? Do we have a deed on them? We don't. We used to, though. We used to, though, because we exploited some people to the limit because of our own gains. Yeah, it was legal 150 years ago in this country to own someone, owe someone, to also to have the possession of someone, right? But we don't, right? And how much of our pain, how much of the difficulties we go through in life have to do with just that? Because if I don't own them, they have their own choices. They make their own decisions. And they quite often can be different than mine. Their perspective will be different than mine. Right? Just being aware of that. See how many times we put so much pain and suffering on material possessions, right? And I'm not saying they're not important, they are, because they give us a lot of comfort. But you can put things in perspective very quickly, right? For instance, we have had a friend that, our age, by the way, a few years ago, she had an incident in the brain. A few cells, went to the wrong direction, and aneurysm took place. That's it. That's it. She's still with us in the flesh, but she can no longer, the brain can no longer function as she used to. Talk about possessions now. Does she care about? No. And this can happen to any one of us, any moment. I remember I was, Brazil is, I grew up in Brazil, and of course, you know, it's a voluntary army, and you're supposed to, if you're a male, you're supposed to, everybody goes through the process of subscribing to the army, and most people are not taken because they don't have the need, thanks God. But I remember I had to stay for 1 week inside an army camp, and it was an amazing experience to me. I didn't want it at all. And but for that 1 week, I remember that they were treating us like harshly. And I remember that drinking water was an amazing thing because they controlled the time we could go to. It's military; it can be tough. And I remember that week I learned the value of drinking water. What we have right now is an opportunity to explore according to your experience, because everybody's experience is different. The way you are going to go through, the way I'm going to go through is different, but the lessons will be always the same. We have to develop in our own spirit, within ourselves, the compass, the direction to guide us towards the spiritual growth. And we're going to find many people. Some will help us in a more conscious way. Others will also help us, but without knowing. And others will even think they're harming us, but they're not, as long as we establish that compass. And this is one of the most difficult teachings of Spiritism, in a sense, because we have friends, we can have connections, we can have people in our religion, we can have a lot of people that might help us consciously, because they try to, like even today, talking about spirituality, right? We're having a conversation about the spiritual value, right, of this essence that we are. But truly, the experience of growing spiritually, becoming mature spiritually, is of the individual. I have to go through it. You have to go through it. Every single one of us will have to go through our process. The chapter 21 of the Gospel according to Spiritism just warns us about what they call the false prophets, right? And what I'm saying to you, in a sense, we can understand in a much better psychological way right now, is just that a lot of people will give us things that are not the best because they have other problems. They have other things. But our job is to develop the inner compass by preparing ourselves, experiencing, studying, growing, and developing the compass in our own hearts. When we do so, we were never going to be affected by all the imperfections, natural imperfections, our brothers and sisters, the people we share this life, have. So every time we think about something, and we think about something bad about us, and we point the blame at somebody else, take as a red flag. We all have that. I don't know about you, but I do. Isn't it nice when we have a problem, a situation, and we can point the blame? Oh, there's clearly a person here that did this. That might be true. The person might have taken the actions to do so. But I cannot do anything about that. Fundamentally, that person is who she or he wants to be. And no thing I make can change that. But what I'm getting on this experience, that's the question I fail to ask myself so often, which is, what is in it for me here? What am I supposed to learn? What I'm going through right now? I know God loves me. And by the way, God, this is an amazing thing, loves every single one of us the same, to the infinite. So which means, what is the experience I have here? What's the learning opportunity I have here? What's in it for me, in this case? Then I'm growing spiritually. If I find the flaws of others, I might not be growing spiritual at all, because it's their problem. Yes, you might be right. I'm not saying that. You might be absolutely right. You might be pointing exactly a flaw on somebody else. Perfect. You understand it. But it's not very useful to you. It's not useful for me to know the imperfections of my wife. I can list it to you, right? But, what is in it for me? I have to learn my imperfections. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm working on myself. That's where I'm growing, right? And for some reason, I don't appreciate so much when she points out some of those imperfections, right? And what's the worst thing? When she's right. But at least, isn't it the gut reaction of, but that's exactly what I should be working. And if you have the blessings of someone in your life that points your imperfection correctly, that you agree, it's someone that's really working on your progress, helping you as much as possible, right? But still, the work of growing spiritually is ours, right? It's ours. It's mine. No matter how much you guys love me, you guys can love me tremendously. You guys can have the best of intentions and compassion and love to me. But if I don't make that move, if I don't open myself to the learning process, there's so much you can do. You can have patience. You can do the best you can, but it's all as the process is going to happen to me. And that's true for every single one of us. The laws are exactly the same. Isn't it amazing? God treats us exactly to the same laws, to the same. Everything so far we found in science, the laws that have no specifically. Oh, if it is Anisio, it's different. Gravity works exactly the same. Electricity, every single law of nature. There's no if Bernadette don't do it. No. They're all the same. Isn't it love? Isn't it amazing? With that in mind, we transition now to our meditation, to our passes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have, are you familiar with passes? Okay, so what we're going to have now is, Renato's going to guide us for a visualization to get us prepared. They used to relax, and towards the end, we're going to have a passes, right? And that's the end of our meeting for today. Thank you very much.